Alrighty, Calvin.
Tyler, Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. You got a young guy, Tyler Booker, first-round pick. How is he progressing so far?
I mean, I think he's doing nicely. Obviously, expectations are high as it is for every single person, but, I really think he is taking the coaching points. And, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so I think the most important thing is to be patient and put something together each and every day. Like, just focus on one thing that, we can improve. And that's something I tell him. I'm like, just focus on one thing. Like, he asked me a question about how to climb the linebackers, and I was like, just focus on trying to do it like this. Like, obviously, there's going to be some nuance. Obviously, you got to adjust to the speed of the game, and the pads haven't even came on yet. They will tomorrow, but I think he'll progress well, and he's ready to learn, and he's a hard worker.
Just are you for that to happen, just putting the pads on and...
I mean, I'm extremely ready. I mean, football ultimately isn't played in T-shirts. I feel like these days have been good just in terms of getting acclimated, but I truly do think, it's all about when those pads come on. So I think the guys are ready. Energy has been high all camp. We've emphasized that, this is going to be a physical camp, and that's something that, I really want to embrace, especially as a unit. So I'm ready.
Tyler Arts for the ESPN. You've not worn pads since January or whatever it is, right? How long does it take you to get accustomed to wearing them again?
I mean... I mean, to me, it's like, I've been wearing pads since I was like 10 years old. So, I feel like once you put them on, it's, I think you just got to get used to like hitting again, that impact. But I think, getting hit in the mouth is nice. I mean, it really does kind of wake you up and get you back into that, that football spirit. And that's something I like. I love the physicality of the game. I think everybody playing football, if you don't love that physicality, you're in the wrong business. So I think it, it takes as long as it takes, but sooner than later for sure.
With the run game, and do you ever know who's back there, who's getting the ball, who's not getting the ball?
I mean, to me, it sounds weird, but it doesn't matter who gets the ball. Ultimately, it's on us as a unit to, open up those gaps so that our guys can go out there and eat. And that's something that Shotty's been telling us, not only in the spring, but all camp is, this team is going to go through us. Like, we're not looking for help. They're not sending help. It's going to be up to us to ultimately, decide, the attitude and the identity of this offense.
How much you like that?
I love it. I love the challenge. I mean, it should be on us. I mean, that's something that we should embrace. Like, I'd rather, we go through this now than, be looking around for somebody to help. And I feel like we got the right unit to, lead this team.
Nick Harris, Forward Star Telegram. What have you seen from this defensive tackle group just from off-season improvements? I know pads coming on will give you a little bit more, but it's kind of some new faces and some returning faces, and specifically Mozzie.
I think it's high energy. I think we got a great defensive room, and I think Osa Odighizu is, exemplifies that leadership and, what everybody should strive to be as a, a young, talented defensive line. And, with the addition of Solomon, I think that brings in some vet leadership and also a guy who's really savvy and has a lot of experience. And with Mozzie, I think he's progressing well. I mean, he's lost a lot of weight, and I think that's been beneficial for him in terms of, like, just improving his twitch. And now I think it's just about for him, putting it together. And, when the pads come on, we'll have a better idea where everybody is at in terms of that. But, I think he'll progress well. I think it's just up to them to put in the work every single day, to get that 1% better.
You kind of see that veteran savvy in Solomon Thomas when you line up with him?
Yeah, I have. I've definitely seen some stuff, and I think, it's just great to go against a guy who has all that experience. And even talking to Tyron in the offseason, he told me when we acquired him, he's like, you're going to love to work against him. He has a different approach, and I feel like it's something that we always need is those different faces, those guys who bring, a different skill set because it gets you ready when, when the season comes and you're facing guys who, aren't just power guys, guys who are speed to power guys or guys who are more shaky and elusive. So I think it's a great way for iron to sharpen iron. I talked to him actually quite a bit during this off season. I joined A1, so we were actually out in Las Vegas for a little event. And, he works out in the same place I get treatment. So I've talked to him a lot, just kind of in terms of some of the goals, we have for the season, some of the stuff like, I can pass on to the guys. And, it's a connection that, I still maintain to this day for sure.
Tommy Yarsh, DallasCowboys.com. Tyler Guyton missed some time in his first training camp, illness, injury. How beneficial is it for the two of you to get these snaps next to each other more and more this year?
It's extremely beneficial. I mean, our motto on O-line is 5 is 1. You know, in order for us to build up that chemistry, it has to be all 5 of the guys who are going to be out there working together. And, you know, I'm glad that, you know, he's been healthy and, you know, he's been able to come out and practice because I think it's truly helped us in terms of just some of the things that we needed to improve on from last season. And so, you know, I think it's very nice that he's been out there.
Do you see him starting to take those next
I
steps?
do see him taking those strides, and you know he's building every single day. You know, the same way I got to build every single day. And I think the thing about it is just being consistent with it, being consistent, with, you know, improving upon, you know, where you were yesterday.
Joe Hoyt, Dallas Morning News. Kind of speaking about Tyler Guyton as well. He was pretty upfront about how he wanted to be someone to be dependent on, wanted to be better than he was in his rookie season. How do you kind of see him attack kind of that being upfront with what happened and trying to move forward with it?
I mean, I think this offseason we worked out together a lot, and I definitely say, like, he was just very consistent with showing up and going to work. And that's what it has to be. It's a choice that you make every day to come in and work, you know, be the best you could possibly be. Even with his diet, I think he ate cleaner. You know, I think his body comp, you know, got a lot better. I think he put on a lot of muscle in the offseason. You know, I think his technique is a lot sharper than it was.
Matty Eberflus, looks like he's throwing some blitzes at you guys and a lot of stunts and stuff like that. How much of a chess match have you already seen between the offense and defense in terms of blitzes, stunts, and passes?
I mean, it's been a lot for sure. I mean, you know, the D-line's moving, you know, the linebackers are shooting, but I think it's something that, you know, is very great for us because I felt like last year we encountered a lot of teams that had a similar philosophy in terms of, you know, moving guys around and stunning and doing all these different type of things, and I think it's helping us as an offense improve and, you know, just kind of adapt to those things that we see in practice.
Brad.
Brad Sham, 105.3 The Fan, Cowboys Radio. Tyler, you're talking about Mozzie losing weight. From your point of view, what's the difference between trying to handle a smaller, quicker guy who's trying to get upfield as opposed to a bigger, heavy anchored nose, or does it depend on the scheme?
I mean, when I think of bigger guys, obviously, you know, they're less elusive. So I feel like you have to be more ready for their power. You know, when I see a smaller guy, you know, I think, you know, you got to be more technically sound in terms of getting to your spot and, you know, making sure that, you know, your feet are in place and your hands are in the right spot and just doing all these things. And it's the same thing you do with a bigger guy. But I think with smaller guys, that's just kind of part of their game. You know that his first thing is not going to be to go through you. It's going to be to go around. They're going to take the path of least resistance. So I think that's just one of the nuances that you see when you study guys and you see guys with similar and different body types like that.
Okay.
Hey, Keelan Keeler with ESPN. You're the player rep, the union player rep for the Cowboys, I believe. What was your reaction to the executive director, Lloyd Howell, resigning, and then J.C. Tretter, the chief of strategy, resigning after that?
I'll be honest. Trent C would probably know more about that than me. But obviously, I guess it was kind of surprising. Yeah.
Tyler, what does it mean to carry on the Cowboys O-line tradition, and what did it mean when Tyron and Zach both said, hey, you're the guy now?
I mean, it means everything to me. And, you know, to be entrusted, you know, with that by, you know, my vets that, you know, taught me so much and poured so much into me. It's a choice, you know, it's something that I'm conscious of every single day. You know, I strive to be the best, you know, I will be the best, and I'll make a choice to be the best every single day. And I think the most important thing for me is just being consistent with what's going to make me better, you know, my technique, you know, being in the weight room, my body, and all these different things. And ultimately, you know, transferring that to the guys around me and just, you know, building that culture that was maintained for so long, you know, before we came into the room. And so it's something that is definitely near and dear to me, something that I ask the guys about every day. And so, yeah.
What have you learned about your jersey number and Larry Allen in the 4 years you've been in?
I mean, it's a question I got a lot, but I mean, Larry Allen, you know, great lineman, you know, God rest his soul. He's one of the best, and he's one of the best of all time. And so, you know, putting on that jersey, you know, it means a lot to me. Obviously, you know, I know the lineage of it, you know, how much weight it carries and things of that nature. But I think the most important thing for me is to, you know, be the best version of myself, you know, wear it with pride. You know, ultimately it is my last name on the back of that jersey now. And so, you know, that matters to me.
Joe. I forgot what I was going to ask, so sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
With Zach gone and Tyron gone, do you feel like the old man in the room, or do you feel like I'm still a young guy, but I just happen to have the most experience?
I wouldn't say I feel like an old man or anything. You know, I'm only 24, so it's something that, you know, I'll be thinking about daily. But, you know, I think the most important thing for me is to, you know, continue to be an ascending player. It's something Zach told me, and it's something that, you know, I realize every year. Every year, like, you're not going to come in and have all the answers. Like, you have to come in and continually make a choice to get better. Like, there are going to be things that you notice in practice, you know, things that you notice when you're watching tape that you didn't like. And when you don't like those things, you have to come up with a plan of how you're going to improve that, a plan of how you're going to, you know, build upon where you were last year, build upon, you know, the mindset, you know, the mental aspects of the game and the physical aspects of the game. So I think that's, you know, where my focus is right now.
I remember. You talk about being an ascending player often. How do you track being an ascending player? How do you kind of check with yourself to be like, hey, I did ascend today, every day?
I think it's the choices I make, you know, the focus that I come into practice with. Like, if I come into practice and I'm like, hey, today, you know, I want to stay low and I want to emphasize my hand usage, it's going to show up on tape. The tape never lies to you. And so when I go and I watch that tape, if I wasn't using my hands and if I was still playing high, I don't think I ascended that day. I don't think I got better the way I needed to get better. And so those are some of the things that, you know, I just kind of, you know, you got to attack a problem piece by piece. You can't solve it all at one time. So I think that's kind of how I think about it. It's just, you know, tighten the screws on one thing that you want to improve on. And then the next day, you know, tighten the screws on another thing that you want to improve on. And once you tighten those screws enough, I mean, you're going to build something great.
Tyler, offensive linemen are generally considered to be some of the most intelligent players in the NFL and on football teams across the league. But even within that category, I've heard you talked about as he's a specialty. What's the sense of pride you take in that, and are there things that you do to enhance that part of who you are as a player and as a member of this organization?
I mean, I take a lot of pride in that. I think, you know, the best offensive linemen are some of the smartest guys on the field, and I definitely think that reigns true with, you know, a lot of my former teammates, and Zach Martin especially. You know, eventually he'll wear a gold jacket. And I think, you know, a large part of that is not only the physical gifts that he was given, but, you know, that head that he had on his shoulders. And so it's something I definitely take pride in. And I think a big way of improving on that is being in your playbook. You know, knowing the nuances of the defenses that you're going against, knowing that the coaching trees and where coaches come from. I think that's something that's super deep that obviously, you know, I feel like that's something I'm still improving on. But I think as you get into that and, like, you're, you know, like, we watch this clip of Ed Reed all the time where I think Tom Brady is talking about, like, how Ed Reed, like, faked like he was going to do something else, and then he came back and got a pick on him, right? Those are the plays, you know, those are the details that, you know, some of the smartest guys who play this game notice, and that's what ultimately will make them great. And that's something I definitely want to, you know, put in my game, you know, something I continually want to improve in my game for sure.
Anything non-football-wise you do in that space?
I've been thinking about reading more. It's actually kind of funny, but I'm like, maybe like books and stuff. I'm like, you know, books on your mindset, just, you know, improving your perspective on things. Because I think not only, you know, we improve our bodies in the weight room and, you know, we do all the stuff on the field, but you also got to sharpen your mind as well. So that's definitely something that, you know, I've been thinking about, and, you know, I've been trying to take a different approach on for sure. Yeah, never the bassoon.
Alrighty, thank you, everybody.
No problem.
Bad experience with the team?
Oh my God, bro, terrible experience.